it is going to be a request to all of the mu'mineen between Maghrib and Isha namaz to pray namaz wahshat qabr. Inshallah, we will Maulana Sahib will also announce it during like after the namaz of Maghrib as well. Just as a reminder, inshallah, we will have some time for that as well for 5 minutes or 6 minutes. So it is just a request to all of the mu'mineen, especially because he was from us, the community member, and he has reached to the truth. Hopefully, we are following him, and may Allah grant him Jannah bihaqi Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Allahumma salli. I would like to request Brother Syed Murtaza Naqvi to come on Mimbar and recite the Ashraf of Muharram. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Allah. Nare Haidari, Bar Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Salawat.
سورة المباركة الفاتحة. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين. نحمد وإياك نستعين. اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. اللهم صل على محمد. أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، والصلاة والسلام والتحية والإكرام على سيدنا وعظيمنا وحبيب قلوبنا والشفيع نفوسنا أبي القاسم محمد وأهل بيت الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين الصادقين المظلومين المنتجبين المنتخبين الذين أذهب اللهم الرجس وطهرهم تطهيرا. اللهم صل على محمد. الحمد لله رب العالمين، والصلاة والسلام والتحية والإكرام على وصي رسول رب العالمين، عبدك ووليك وأخي رسولك وحجتك على خلقك وآيتك الكبرى والنباء العظيم، أبا الحسنين مولى القونين إمام الثقلين يأسوب الدين سيد المتقين رأس المحسنين قاتل المشرقين سلطان الأولياء أمير المؤمنين أول المسلمين أسد الله الغالب غالب كل غالب مظهر العجائب علي بن أبي طالب. اللهم صل على محمد. اللهم لعن أول ظالم ظلم حق محمد وآل محمد وآخر تابع له على ذلك خصوصا سنمي قريش. الحمد لله الذي لا يحتك حجابه ولا يغلق بابه ولا يرد سائله ولا يخيب آمله. أما بعد، فيقول الله في كتاب الكريم: بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم، إنما يخشى الله من عباده العلماء. صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. Over the last 2 nights, we've established that the Holy Quran is one of the weighty things, and the second of the weighty things is the itra. And in so establishing, we've also established the truth that the people who propagate this message are also of two types: the righteous ones and those who are not so righteous. You find that there are those individuals who will come towards you with the ahadith and the Quran to propagate the message that has been left through the books that we have. And there are those who will use the Quran and their opinion to propagate a message other than the message of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And in so doing, the righteous scholars, when you ask them any sorts of questions, they will give you answers from the holy texts and from the holy words. And then there will be others who will propagate their own message. And I remember that one of my teachers said it very clearly, that when you recite the tasbih, and you recite, for example, 35 times Allahu Akbar and 36 times Subhanallah and 37 times Alhamdulillah, then that becomes your own version of that tasbih. That is not the tasbih of Fatima Zahra salawatullah salamu alayha. And that becomes your own amal. And your own amal in front of the eyes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is naught. For if it was worth anything, then those who pray in congregation in the midst of the night, in the month of Shahr Ramadan, then their worship would be worth something. But in the eyes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, if you do a worship that is outside the parameters taught by the holy personalities that we believe in, who we say that they are the wirsa of قُلْ لَا أَسْأَلُكُمْ عَلَيْهِ أَجْرًا إِلَّا الْمَوَدَّةَ فِي الْقُرْبَى, that then if we go outside of those parameters, that we have indeed lost our faith. And today I was thinking of presenting a hadith, but I wasn't sure if people had the heart to accept the hadith, because some of our ahadith within our works can be very strong, let's just say. And I dwindled on this for many an hour today, whether I was going to present the hadith or not. And I came to the conclusion that I will. And I'll give you the reference just in case you want to confirm it, because it's a pretty lengthy hadith, so I can't memorize it. So that's why I'm going to read it to you. But you find that this hadith is found in the tafsir of Imam Hassan Askari salawatullah salamu alayhi. And those of you who want to verify it, it is hadith number 26. And it is a message that Amir al-Mu'mineen, our first Imam, gives to his Shia. Now, I've already set the parameters for you, that there's two types of people who propagate this message. Please bear this in mind. There are the righteous ones who will use the Quran and the Itra. And then there are those who will use the Quran and their opinion. They will use their own aql. And they will come to their own conclusions. And they may even turn around and say that 80% of the hadith are false. Even 100% in some cases, mashallah, because so much opinion is being thrown around. But you find that I want you now, with this context in your mind, to listen to this hadith and try to understand what the Imam is saying. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. O group of our Shias, the claimants to be those that love us, beware of the people of opinion, for they are the enemies of the Sunnah. Ahadith have run away from their memories, and they have no intention of protecting the Sunnah. They have taken the servants of Allah as their followers and their wealth as their own. and have turned them into their own riches. Many of the people have become humiliated and obedient to them just like dogs. They have snatched away the rights from the rightful ones and have taken themselves as the righteous imams. But they are from the jahil, from the ignorant, from the kafir, the unbelievers, and the ones who are mal'oon, the accursed ones. When they are asked about something, they do not say that they do not know. Rather, they instead do not admit to their ignorance and use their opinion and go astray and lead others astray. So you find that the Imam here has stated very clearly there are certain personalities that we will deal with in every era. It's not just in his time. In every era, there will be people who will use their opinion. And indeed, there are many ahadith that say, from numerous number of the Imams, that say that there will come a time where people who are classed as scholars will be charlatans and they will mix the truth with the falsehood and they will lead our Shia astray. And there are also other ahadith from the Prophet of God sallallahu alaihi wasallam who has said that those people who learn religion from the mouths of people, who have learned religion from the mouth of the people, will also lose that same religion from the same mouth. That is why in the Quran it says very clear, it says Ikra, read. Reading is the thing that will save you. It is that pen and paper in black and white that will save you. Because otherwise everything is going to be based on opinions. Fulan Malana said this, Fulan Shakhsiya said this, Fulan person said this, Fulan person said that. But you find when you go towards the text, and the Imams will ask this question, what will happen in a time when you are not here anymore in front of our eyes? They said, go towards the Ravi of our hadith, the Muhaddithin, the people who narrate hadith. And unfortunately, those are the people we have left. When was the last time we ever picked up a book of hadith? When was the last time we asked a person who propagates the message that, Ya Sheikh, what does this hadith mean? Maslan, I don't understand it, so tell me, what does it mean? But unfortunately, we have never done this. And you find instead, individuals from the first era till the era of today have done ghasb on our imams. But we have been blind to it. And you find that the Muslim community has been blind to it. Say, Muhammad, what do you mean? That from the beginning of time, since the Prophet passed away, you're saying that everyone's been blind to this message? Of course they have. That when, for example, Karbala completed and it was finished, and the fourth Imam went to the court of Yazid, what was he saying? He says, those of you who know me, and those of you who don't, let me tell you who I am. Why? Because the people had forgotten Ahlul Bayt. The people had forgotten Ahlul Bayt. They had forgotten who Amir al-Mu'mineen was. They had forgotten who the Sadiq was, who the Farooq was, who the Siddiqah was. Why? Because other people had come and stole their titles. Now you find that the first Khalifa was called what? It's called Sadiq. You find the second Khalifa was called what? Farooq. You find Muawiyah. What was he called? He was called Amir al-Mu'mineen. Because people have forgotten who Ali Muhammad are. And likewise, we are in that same boat today. That we have also forgotten them. Yes, we know their names. But we do not want to be like those people who, when the Imam comes in front of us and we say, we don't even recognize you. Why? Because our hearts have become blinded. Our truth has been mixed with falsehood. We have not gone near the ahadith. We don't understand the Quran. Because we don't go near the hadith. We don't ask those people who propagate this message that what are our hadith? We do not want to be in a situation like this. We need to reform and revitalize our communities. That is for too long we've been stagnant. It's for too long that we've come here and we've cried and we've done girya, which is beautiful. And may Allah reward each and every one of us, but we have to do more. And I'm not saying to you, go build towers. I'm saying, go in your houses, read the books that have been left to you through the blood of those muhaddith who were killed on this journey. The imams that took poison, the imams that were slaughtered for your cause. They gave everything to you. And wallah, it breaks my heart. When I hear something like, when people start complaining, oh, my kids have school tomorrow, so why is the majlis till 12 o'clock? So what about Abdullah can give a 6-month-old baby and you got problem staying till 12? Sharam karo, ya karo. That you're so concerned about your children that, they're going to sleep late so they won't be able to function in school. What about that 6-month-old baby that gave his life for you today? What about him? What about the youngsters whose bodies were on the ground for 3 days? What about them? No, but we don't remember that because Karbala is just a story, isn't it? Karbala is just a story, isn't it? Like every other book that you read, every other movie that you see. It's just a story. You cry, finish, no, forget that. We'll leave a review at the end. Now you find that people have stolen the titles of our imams in the past, and they have also stolen them today. Now I mentioned to you the hadith yesterday. There are 3 types of people in this world. They are the scholars, they are the students, and then there is the waste of society. Now many people use the opinion and say, on this particular level, scholars means this and scholars means that. Brother, listen. There's only one meaning, and that's the meaning of Ahlul Bayt. There's no other meaning. You can give whatever fatwa you want in terms of saying that, this hadith means this particular scholar, and this hadith is a reference to this particular scholar. Brother, how do you know what hadith is where and who is it referred to? How do you know? Who's given you the authority to analyze these hadith and say that it means him and it means her? That's why you find in the Holy Quran, what does it say? It says, إِنَّمَا يَخْشَى اللَّهَ مِنْ عِبَادِهِ الْعُلَمَاء. What does this mean? What does this mean? This means that those are the individuals that fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right, who are knowledgeable worshippers. Knowledgeable worshippers. Now, when we look at this verse in the Holy Quran, what do we think? We think so it's someone who fears Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and it must be, someone with a big bed and an abaya like me. Minus the bed. Right? Maybe a imama on his head and everything like this. Maybe. But fortunately, we have something called tafsir. And you find that every time, and this is what your 5th Imam and your 6th Imam has said. This is not Muhammad Murtaza giving his fatwa on you. This is your Imam giving his fatwa on you. You find that within the works of Sheikh Ulaini and Sheikh Saduq and Sheikh Mufid and Hur al-Amili, I can rattle off the scholars if you like, but we haven't got time for that. But you find that each of them, within their tafsir, within the hadith, and also within the tafsir works as well, you find that whenever it mentions ulama, specifically ulama, not ulama as-su, for example, or ulama, the rabbis, for example, the Christians, no. I'm just saying the word ulama on its own, when it talks about fearing, knowledgeable, pious, all of these things. Many people will come to you and say, oh no, this is talking about, for example, the Maulana that's sitting on the member, for example. No. Your 5th and 6th Imam says the ulama are only and will only ever be the Ahlul Bayt salawatullah salamu alayhum. So the question is why? They say, Muhammad, this is just a word, it's just a word. We use it all the time. Every second person is alim, every second person is ulama, every second person Hujjatul Islam wal Muslimin every single day. 15. There's about We have about 20,000 Hujjatul Islam wal Muslimeens, especially in Pakistan, mashallah. Har dusra, mashallah. You find that every single person is Hujjatul Islam wal Muslimin. Alim, alim. What does alim mean? Alim is a sifat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It means to be the most knowledgeable. An alim is an individual that if you ask him a question, he will always have the answer prepared. He will know your question before you question. It is a sifat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If we say that this is the criteria of being an alim, then who can only be an alim? The only individuals who are alim according to the fifth, sixth Imam, and therefore all of the Imams, therefore the Rasul and the Nabis, all the way till the Prophet of Adam. You find the alim is the one from Muhammad wa ali Muhammad salawatullah wa salamu alayhi. And you find that we have to realize this, that it is for too long that we have given the titles of the holy Imams to fallible people. That if you ask yourself this question, look, I'm gonna ask you on a logical level, right? Ask yourself this question. We as Shia of Ali Muhammad, we always say one thing, right? We say, you know, the brothers use their opinion and give titles to, for example, the first Khalifa and the second Khalifa. And you know, for example, al-Mu'mineen Aisha, for example, has the title of Siddiqa. And you find Abu Bakr has the title of Siddiq and Umar has the title of Farouk. So you see that through people's opinion, these people have these titles. Although there's hadith by the Rasul that says very clearly that if there's a Farouk al-A'zam, there's a Siddiq al-Akbar, then it is only our first Imam. We know this. And you find that if there is a Siddiqa, then it's the Lady of Light. But you find out of the enmity of these individuals, or the jealousy of these individuals, these people were given the title. To make these people look like liars. What do you mean liars? That if you call, for example, the first Khalifa Siddiq and he has a debate, if he has a debate with someone, let's just say, I don't know, daughter of Rasul, for example, or he has a debate, for example, I don't know, with her husband, for example. So what does that make them? That you say this person is Siddiq, and that person is what then? If you say that, for example, there's a battle called the Battle of Jamal, everybody knows more than Battle of Jamal than I do. But you say on one side there's a Siddiqa, so what does that make the other side? So we use this premise and we say that, listen, you guys need to stop doing qiyas and using your opinion and giving these titles, because these titles belong to who? Belongs to them. So let me ask you this question then. That if, for example, on our members today, that every second person is Hujjatul Islam wal Muslimin, every second person is Alim, every second person is Maulana and Mawla and Aka. I'm not going to go that far. Well, I won't go that far. But you find that these titles, when Ali Muhammad has told you that the word alim is reserved for us. And you know what the sad thing is? The sad thing is not that, for example, people say it. Because people don't know. Majority of people mustn't ihtiram ke saath wo keh dete hain, that they say it, with ihtiram, not knowing that there's hadith, for example, and that's fine. You don't know. But the guy who's saying it, he should know. Now, if someone comes and tells you, you're Hujjatul Islam wal Muslimin, to fiir Imam Zamana kya bane? Now ask yourself this question, that if, for example, these titles that we've reserved for the holy personalities, and every second person is coming and doing ghasb of these names, then what is the difference between Ahlul Sunnah and us? Ask yourself the question for a second. Think about it. That if, for example, 400, 500 years later, for example, people started saying that the first, second Khalifa and one of the wives of the Prophet have these titles, and then some people 1,200 years ago, right? So what, we're in 1444, for example, 200, 300, 400 years ago started giving titles to everyone. Where is the title for Sheikh Kulaini? I want titles for Sheikh Kulaini. That's what I want. I want titles for Sheikh Mufid. I want titles, for example, for Sheikh Saduq. I want titles for Sheikh Hur al-Amali. Why is it that we have to go through a whole page of titles before we get to someone's name when they're fallible? Look, this is not my opinion because I'm not here to give you an opinion. Frankly speaking, I'm against opinions. But your Imams have clearly said that there are certain titles that are reserved for us. Then why is it that we attack the Ahlul Sunnah and say, you do this or you do that? We're doing the same thing. That you're attacking them and look at your own religion, what you're doing. So how can it be? How can this be possible? That we allow for these things to happen within our mosques? Why is it that these things are happening? Because we haven't taken any responsibility. We have not only not taken responsibility, but we also at the same time, brothers and sisters, we haven't read the ahadith. We haven't learned the words of the Imams. Am I discarding people's knowledge? No, I'm not. Do I believe that the scholars have a use? Of course they have a use. Because not each and every one of us can understand the ahadith. That's the truth. There are some complex hadith that need to be contextualized. I myself, before I present any hadith, I go to my scholars and the learned scholars that I've learned from to say that, what do you think about this hadith? It was narrated here, for example. What do you think? I'm not presenting to you, for example, I just found a hadith and, carry on. But you find that we have to reform our communities. And if we do not, then we will lose this message in amongst the falsehood. Because when you mix truth with falsehood, like when you mix pure water with najasa, even a drop of najasa and pure water makes the whole thing najas. Fiqh 101. See, even I know fiqh. So you find that, look, in order to move forward as a community, we have to take the daman of Ahl al-Bayt salawatullah wa salamu alayhim. And then one of the questions is this, that then who are the waris of the prophets? And it's a very simple answer. It is the itra. There is no one else who is the waris. As much as anyone wants to tell you that it is someone else, no, there's no one else. This religion starts with them and stops with them. If you go too ahead of the Thaqalain, you are misguided. If you stay too behind the Thaqalain, you are misguided. You must stay with them. Because they will be together until the day of judgment, until the day that they drink from the pool of Kawthar together. I urge each and every one of you, do not go astray. Because if we do, then what will happen to our children? How will we be able to propagate this message forward? And that reform that we are speaking about is why Abu Abdullah gave his life for us. It was for reform. There are some Jahil people, such as Ibn Taymiyyah, who says, for example, that he was a rebel and he done it for politics and money. But then again, that same Jahil person also said that Amir al-Mu'mineen done certain things before prayer as well. And I do not want to mention these things and ruin this majlis. But you find that he came to reform. Why? Because people have forgotten Ahlul Bayt. And today I tell you, we have also forgotten them. We are forgetting them. We have to hold on to the Aba of Ahlul Bayt. We must hold on to them. And even if we've spent 50, 60, 70 years of our life and we've gone towards other paths, we've gone towards, I don't know, Sufism or something. Some people like to shake their heads. I don't know why. But you find that you've gone towards other paths. Come towards their path. For they are oft forgiving, like their Lord. And the best of examples that I can give you is the example of Hur ibn Yazid al-Riyahi. That's the best example I can give you. The most eloquent of examples. That on the 2nd of Muharram, when Abu Abdullah was going towards Kufa, you find that this Hur came towards Abu Abdullah. When he came towards him, you find that his tongue was out. And there was 1,000 soldiers with him, and their tongues were out of the thirst. Their horses were thirsty. And you find that Abu Abdullah told Hazrat Abbas, he said, Abbas, each one of them give them water. Give them water and give the animals water. And then Abu Abdullah said that it is the time for prayer. Now Abu Abdullah said, Hur, you take your men and you pray over there. And I'll take my kafla and I'll pray over here. And Hur says something very beautiful here. He says, Yabna Zahra, how can I lead prayers when the Nawasa of Rasul is in front of me? When the Nawasa of Rasul is in front of me. So they began to pray. Hur and his army men prayed behind them. And when they finished praying, Abu Abdullah said, it is time for us to go. He got upon his horse and Hur rushed towards him and grabbed the reins of his horse. Now, I don't know if anyone knows about horses and Arabic culture, but if you grab the reins of someone's horse, it's seen as very disrespectful because you're stopping their path. It's like, for example, when you're driving and there's a guy who cuts you off. I'm sure you've all had a little bit of road rage. If he cuts him off, Hur cuts him off. And what does Abu Abdullah do? And I want you to think about this now. Look at the akhlaq of Abu Abdullah. I promise you to God, if there's any of us, he said, we would have said, we would have said, Hur, what do you think you're doing? I just gave water to you and 1,000 of your men and your animals, and you come and stop me. You and I would have said this. What did the Imam say? The Imam said, he did not remind him of the favor. Instead, he said, may your mother weep for you. You know what Hur said? Hur gave the most beautiful reply. He said, Abu Abdullah, if this had been any other man, I would have gave you an equal reply. But you are the son of Fatimah al-Zahra, salawatullah salamu alayhi. And you found that Hur did not allow him to go. And then you find that Abu Abdullah went towards, where did he go? He went towards Karbala. And he established his tents there. And when he established his tents, you found that he put the fire around his tents and people said certain things to him. And you found that came the 10th of Muharram, came the 9th of Muharram. And on the 9th of Muharram, Hur went towards Umar ibn Sa'ad. And when he went towards Umar ibn Sa'ad, he said, Umar, are we actually going to fight the Nawasa of Rasul? And he said, Hur, be ready. For tomorrow, heads will be flying, blades will be soaked in blood, and hands will be cut. And Hur says that this made me cry. Hur said, this made me cry. That we're going to attack the son of Fatimah al-Zahra? And then they asked Hur, they said, Hur, what was another reason why you joined the army of Abu Abdullah? He says, when Abu Abdullah was making a fire around his tents, Shimir would say, Abu Abdullah, you getting ready for the fire of hell. So Hur turns around and says, how can it be that Abu Abdullah is getting ready for the fire of hell when he is the chief of the masters of paradise, of the youth of paradise? And then you find that Hur turns and says, and looks around him and he sees the horses. And the horses are galloping and crying and wailing because of the heat. And Hur begins to cry and says, look at these horses. These horses, look at these horses. They want water. And I can hear the children of Rasulullah crying, Al-Atash, Al-Atash. Oh, give us some water, give us some water. As Hur begins to cry, and it's the Fajr prayers, and he completes the Fajr prayers on the 10th of Muharram. And he begins to cry, and he gets on his horse and goes towards Abu Abdullah. And then he hears a call, and he says, "Oh father, where are you going? Are you going to attack Abu Abdullah?" And the son of Hur says, "Where are you going, oh father?" And then Hur looks back towards his son and says, "Oh son, I am going towards paradise. Do you want to come?" And the son says, "I want to come." And the slave goes with him. And when they get towards Abu Abdullah, and when they get close to those tents, Hur looks to his left and he looks to his right and says to his slave and son, "Cover my eyes with a cloth, tie my hands and my legs, and take me on my knees to Abu Abdullah." And Abu Abdullah says to Abu al-Fadl Abbas, "I have a guest coming, please go do his istiqbal." You find that Hazrat Abbas goes towards Hur, and the child gets scared and he says, "Oh father, Hazrat Abbas is coming towards us, what should we do?" He says, "Oh, call him and say we have not come here to fight, but rather we are here to give our service to you." And when he came to give the service, Hazrat Abbas called out, "Do not worry, I am coming for your istiqbal." So he took Hur ibn Yazid al-Riyahi to Abu Abdullah. And he said, "Oh, Abu Abdullah, forgive me, forgive me, forgive me." "Why should he forgive you?" "Because it is because of me you have come to the plains of Karbala. It is because of me that your 6-month-old baby has not got any milk or water for 3 days. It is because of me that Sakina has not got any water." He begins to cry, and Abu Abdullah says, "My brother, I welcome you." You find that Hur turns and says, "Can I ask for forgiveness from the daughters of Rasulullah?" Abu Abdullah gives his permission. He goes outside the tents and he calls, he says, Yabna bint Rasulullah, please forgive me, forgive me. I have wronged you." And they began to cry. And when they began to cry, Hur threw his helmet on the ground and began to strike his face. And he said, "It is 2 times I have made the daughters of Rasulullah cry." And then Hur goes towards the battlefield. But before he does, he sends his son. And when he sends his son is killed. And Hur rushes towards the battlefield. And before he gets there, Abu Abdullah is already at the body. And Hur says, "Oh, Abu Abdullah, why have you come towards the body of this slave, of the son of the slave?" He says, "Oh, Hur, how can a father carry the body of his son?" And I ask you, Abu Abdullah, when Hazrat Ali Akbar's body is in the ground and the spear is in his chest, how did you carry the body of Abu Abdullah? And the poets say, when the spear was in the chest, Abu Abdullah looked towards Najaf and said, "Oh father, how can it be that you lifted the gate of Khaybar, and how easy that must have been? Come towards Karbala. Your son is lifting the spear from the heart of the Shabi of Rasulullah." إن لله وإنا إليه راجعون رضا بقضائه وتسليما لأمره. أعظم الله أجورنا وأجوركم بمصابنا بالحسين صلوات الله وسلامه عليه.
मुरार साहब को कह दें। औज़ु बिल्लाहि मिनश शैतानिर रजीम, बिस्मिल्लाहिर रहमानिर रहीम, इन्नल्लाहा